Imagine looking deeply into the eyes of someone you love.
It's a profound thing, usually.
Right, usually, like a partner or a parent, or maybe just a friend of many years. You're searching for that silent, invisible current that says, I am in here and I see you.
Yes, that fundamental human connection.
Exactly. But as you hold their gaze, you get this sudden, terrifying realization washing over you.
That nobody is home.
Yeah. And not metaphorically, literally. I mean, the biological machinery is running perfectly, right?
Right. The lungs draw breath, the vocal cords vibrate.
The pupils dilate in the light. But the deeper animating Stark, the resident of the body, so to speak, is entirely missing.
It is, honestly, one of the most chilling intuitions a human being can experience.
He really is.
To sit across a table from someone and feel this absolute consuming void where a spirit should be.
Yeah. And for a long time, you try to rationalize it away. You tell yourself, well, they're just tired, or I'm demanding too much.
Or you say they just have a different communication style.
Yeah, exactly. But your gut instinct is just screaming at you that something is fundamentally wrong. So today's deep dive is an exploration into a profoundly unsettling concept that suggests, well, maybe your intuition isn't just an overactive imagination.
It might be a terrifying reality.
Right. We are going to explore the esoteric philosophy of Helena Blavatsky, who was, one of the most brilliant and controversial mystical minds of the 19th century.
Indeed.
Alongside the deeply spiritual and often overlooked observations of the visionary inventor Nikola Tesla.
Our mission today is to uncover what Blavatsky referred to as empty shells.
Empty shells. Just the phrase itself is, it's heavy.
It is. These are beings who walk among us, who look and act human, but who lack a soul. But more importantly, if you are listening to this right now and feeling a knot in your stomach.
Because you recognize this phenomenon.
Yes. If you recognize it, we are here to guide you out of the confusion. We are going to explore the mechanics behind this emptiness, why it exhausts you to your core, and ultimately how you can protect your own energetic integrity.
Okay, so let's unpack this from the very foundation. Because the word soul is, well, it's thrown around so casually today, right?
It is very casual.
People use it to mean personality or a sense of humor or even just like basic waking consciousness.
Yes, the modern colloquial understanding is very diluted.
Exactly. So before we can identify what an empty shell is, we really need to define what a soul actually is according to these sources. And Tesla viewed it very differently than we usually do.
He did. You see, Tesla understood the universe as a symphony of frequencies and vibrations.
Right. Everything is energy.
Everything. And to him, the human body was essentially an intricate receiver, like a radio antenna.
Okay, I like that analogy.
But the soul was not just the intellect. I mean, you can have a staggeringly high IQ, a brilliant memory, and immense cognitive processing power, and still be entirely devoid of a soul.
Wait, really? So intelligence has nothing to do with it?
Nothing at all. To Tesla, the soul is a divine spark. It is the literal active bridge between immortal, infinite consciousness and our dense physical manifestation here on Earth.
So it's the capacity for transcendence.
Precisely. The soul is what allows a human being to feel profound, unexplainable resonance. It is the part of you that bleeds in the face of injustice.
Even when that injustice doesn't directly affect you.
Exactly. It is the mechanism that causes you to weep at a mathematical equation or a piece of music or just looking up at the vastness of the night sky.
Which brings us directly to Helena Blavatsky's definition of empty shells. Blavatsky essentially described these entities as humans in form and appearance only.
Yes, in form only.
They are entirely disconnected from what she called the higher self.
Blavatsky taught that a human being is made up of multiple layers. We have the physical body, obviously, and we have what she called the basic astral body.
Okay, the basic astral body. Let's dig into that.
This layer processes raw, survival-based emotions, things like fear, hunger, and basic pleasure. An empty shell has these lower layers. They function perfectly well.
Right. They eat, they reproduce, they hold jobs.
Yes. But their entire existence is dedicated merely to simulating life and ensuring their biological and social survival.
They have no anchor to the divine.
None whatsoever.
Wait, before we go further, I need to stop and ask for some clarification here. For listeners who aren't deep into, esoteric philosophy, what exactly do we mean by the basic astral level?
That is an excellent question.
Are we just talking about raw primal instinct?
Think of the basic astral level as the body's emotional hard drive. It is the repository of reactionary feelings.
Reactionary.
When an animal is startled, it feels fear. That is an astral reaction. When a person is hungry and eats a delicious meal, they feel basic satisfaction. That is also astral.
So it's very biological, very survival-oriented emotion.
Exactly. An empty shell possesses this. They can feel physical pain, they can feel anger if their resources are threatened.
Like if someone takes their money or their status?
Yes, and they can feel a basic selfish sort of pleasure. But what they lack is the higher spiritual body, the layer that transforms basic satisfaction into deep gratitude, or fear into courageous self-sacrifice.
Wow. So they operate entirely on the ground floor of human existence.
That is a perfect way to put it, the ground floor.
Okay, but I really struggle with this next part. I want to play devil's advocate here because, well, we need absolute clarity on this.
Please do.
If we are defining an empty shell as someone who is emotionally flat, who doesn't experience transcendent joy or deep empathy, how do we differentiate an empty shell from someone who is simply neurodivergent or someone dealing with severe clinical depression? How does the source material draw the line between a biological brain difference and a literal missing soul? Because I really don't want us pathologizing mental health struggles here.
I am so glad you brought that up because it is the most vital distinction we must make today.
It feels like a very dangerous line to cross if we aren't careful.
It can be, but Blavatsky and esoteric traditions are very clear on this. Mental illness, depression, and neurodivergence are conditions of the physical and mental hardware.
The hardware.
Yes. If someone is severely depressed, a thick cloud has covered their internal sun. They are exhausted, numb, and unable to feel joy. But the sun is still there.
The spark is still intact.
Exactly. It's just buried under the weight of biological or psychological suffering. In fact, people with severe depression often suffer because their soul is so incredibly sensitive to the state of the world.
That makes profound sense. The pain of depression is often the pain of a soul feeling trapped or just entirely overwhelmed.
Precisely. And neurodivergence, such as being on the autism spectrum, is simply a different wiring of the biological receiver.
So the radio is just tuned differently.
Yes. The soul is absolutely present, radiating beautifully. It just interfaces with the physical world through a different operating system.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But an empty shell.
With an empty shell, there is no cloud covering the sun. There is no sun at all. The hardware is often perfectly healthy. They are rarely depressed.
Because there's no deeper awareness to be depressed about.
Right. They are highly functional, often incredibly successful, and completely untroubled by their lack of depth.
It's the difference between a radio that is temporarily broken or tuned to a unique frequency and a plastic replica of a radio that has no internal circuitry whatsoever.
That is exactly it. And this is why we must emphasize that empty shells are not necessarily evil. We really have to strip away the Hollywood ideas of movie villains and demons here.
Right, they aren't all like mustache-twirling bad guys.
Not at all. An empty shell can be charming, highly educated, and remarkably talented. They might be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, a respected surgeon, or just a polite neighbor who always mows their lawn.
So their emptiness is hidden behind a flawless disguise of social normalcy.
Yes. They aren't plotting malicious destruction. They are simply operating without an internal compass of sacredness.
And I want to speak directly to the listener right now. Think about your own history. You may have loved someone like this. You poured your heart into them, sharing your deepest fears, your most tender vulnerabilities.
It is a devastating experience.
It is. You're trying to build a bridge of intimacy. And no matter how much love you poured out, it felt like it just vanished into a vacuum.
Yes.
And you spent years wondering what was wrong with you. Why weren't you enough to make them feel?
The agony you experienced is actually a matter of spiritual physics.
Spiritual physics, I love that term.
A true soul seeks resonance. When you try to communicate your deepest self to an empty shell, you were acting as a tuning fork, vibrating with a complex, beautiful frequency.
Right.
But you were vibrating next to a piece of acoustic foam.
Oh, wow.
The foam absorbs the sound, it takes your energy, but it is physically, structurally incapable of resonating back. You are speaking a language of light to an entity that does not possess the concept of a horizon.
That is so deeply validating, honestly. So how do we spot them? If they look normal, act normal, and can even perfectly mimic charm, what is the silent radar Blavatsky left behind to identify them?
The sources offer specific behavioral and energetic signs woven together by this underlying lack of spiritual physics.
Let's look at the first sign, which is probably the most visceral. The gaze.
Yes. Blavatsky teaches that the eye is the gate of the astral consciousness. Where there is a soul, the eye is a window.
You can look into it and perceive depth, history, and a silent mutual recognition of existence.
But where there is no soul, the eye is merely biological glass. It is nothing more than an optical lens processing incoming light data.
It is such an eerie, unmistakable sensation once you know what to look for. I mean, their eyes might be objectively beautiful, right?
Very often they are.
And they might even know the social rule to hold eye contact to appear attentive. But looking into them, it literally feels like looking into a mirror with no reflection.
Yes.
You stare into their pupils, searching for that spark, and you just hit a wall.
That coldness, that profound loneliness you feel in their presence is your own soul realizing it has no counterpart in the room.
It's recognizing the void.
Exactly. Your energy reaches out, seeking a harmonic response, and it meets an absolute chilling vacuum.
Because they have that profound energetic absence, it dictates how they relate to the physical world around them, which leads us directly to the second sign. Their complete disconnection from living nature.
A true soul vibrates in harmony with the natural world. Why? Because the soul recognizes the divine spark within all living things.
Right, there's a shared frequency.
A person with a soul can be walking to their car, late for work, stressed out, and still be stopped in their tracks by the specific melancholic smell of wet earth after a storm.
Or they can be moved to absolute stillness by the geometry of a spider web.
Yes, they feel the interconnected, breathing web of life.
But the soulless person walks through a majestic, ancient redwood forest as if they were walking through a parking lot.
It is all just matter to them.
They might observe it intellectually. They might say, well, what a tall tree. This wood must be valuable. But their energy does not merge with the environment. It's just an artificial plastic landscape to them.
And here is where we find nature's ultimate defense mechanism. Animals and small children.
This blew my mind when I read it. Children and animals act as raw, unfiltered lie detectors for this exact phenomenon.
Tesla noted that pure beings, those who operate entirely on instinct, frequency, and uncorrupted energy, detect this absence before a single word is spoken or a single action is taken.
You see a dog fiercely growling at a guest who is smiling, perfectly dressed, and holding out a treat.
And the owner usually apologizes.
Yeah, they say, oh, my dog is never like this, I'm so sorry. Or, you see a cat refuse to enter a room when a specific person is there. Mm-hmm. You see infants bursting into inconsolable tears and physically pushing away from someone who is cooing at them.
The animals and the babies aren't analyzing the person's tone of voice or their resume.
Right, they don't care about social status.
They are reacting to the energetic void. Because instinct does not lie. Instinct is the raw, unedited language of the universe.
So they sense the predator, or rather, the absence of life.
Exactly. When the soul is absent, the very instinct of nature recoils. It is a biological and energetic self-preservation mechanism against the void.
Now, because these entities are disconnected from nature and genuine energetic resonance, they still have to survive in a society built by and for people with souls. So they have to adapt. Which brings us to the third sign. Simulated emotions and emotional blocking.
Blavatsky describes this as a reaction that tries to appear alive but is merely a reflection of form.
Form without substance.
There is a complete lack of harmony between true internal feeling and external action.
It is the uncanny valley of human interaction. They are like actors who have memorized their lines perfectly but have absolutely no understanding of the play's themes.
They know that when someone's parent dies, you are supposed to cry and offer condolences, so they simulate it.
They offer comforting words, but when they hug you, it feels like being wrapped in a cold, heavy blanket. There's not a shred of actual empathy.
Let us look at the mechanics of why they do this. They do not simulate emotion to mock you.
They don't.
No, they do it because mimicking emotion is an evolutionary survival strategy in a social world. If they do not mimic grief at a funeral or joy at a wedding, they will be recognized as anomalous.
They'll be outcasts.
They will be cast out of the social structure. So they study us. They learn the algorithm of human grief. They learn the algorithm of love.
Algorithmic emotion. That's exactly what it feels like. It is a computed output based on social impulse.
But because there is no soul to anchor and generate the emotion, the display is always slightly off rhythm. It is linear. It is flat.
Right, because real human emotion is messy. It's unpredictable. It has nuance and shadow.
Their simulation lacks the jagged, beautiful unpredictability of a real human heartbreaking or expanding.
So, if their internal emotional world is just a calculated algorithm, what does that mean for their inner lives?
Right.
Do they even have an inner life?
No.
This leads us to the fourth sign. The absolute absence of an inner journey. I mean, do they ever lie awake at night staring at the ceiling, agonizing over the big questions? Who am I? Why am I here? What is the meaning of my suffering?
No, they do not. Because to ask who am I requires an I that exists beyond the physical body, the job title, and the social ego.
Which they don't have.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The soulless live as robotic passengers on the train of life. They do not experience the agonizing beauty of an existential crisis.
Which is wild to think about. Because suffering through an existential crisis feels terrible while you're in it, but it is absolute proof of life.
It is proof of a spark.
Trying to discuss deep philosophy, spiritual growth, or, childhood trauma with an empty shell is literally like throwing a delicate living seed onto a sheet of reinforced concrete. You talk about a profound realization you had about your past, and they just stare blankly and change the subject to the weather of the stock market.
Because for them, the internal world does not exist. Their reality is entirely, rigidly external. If they cannot touch it, measure it, or consume it, it holds no value.
It's purely material.
Which directly informs the fifth sign, their cold observation of beauty.
This one hurts to think about. How do they interact with art?
A soul will stand paralyzed before a magnificent painting or weep at the crescendo of a symphony because the soul recognizes the divine language encoded within the art.
Right.
Art is the soul communicating with itself across time. The soulless, however, act merely as critics and catalogers.
They can tell you the exact brushstroke technique used in a Renaissance painting. They can tell you the historical context, the market value of the canvas, the type of pigment used.
Yes.
But they cannot surrender to it?
They understand the anatomical structure of the butterfly perfectly, but they kill it and pin it to a board to study it under a microscope, completely missing the miracle of its flight.
Oh, that's a brilliant analogy.
They can describe beauty with technical precision, but they can never be undone by it.
And their relationship with art is perfectly mirrored in their relationship with time. This is the sixth sign. Time is a finish line, and the ruthless utility of the present.
Blavatsky referred to their existence as a state of profound stillness, but not the stillness of Zen peace or meditation.
It's not a peaceful stillness.
No, it is the stillness of a stone. It is a life lived with an absolute unconsciousness of eternity.
Think of a factory conveyor belt. For a soulless person, time is just a mechanism for pure production, consumption, and advancement. The item moves down the belt, you assemble it, you ship it, you grab the next one.
There is no lingering, bittersweet nostalgia for the past.
Right, and there's no dreaming of the future as a landscape for spiritual evolution.
Because they possess no immortal spark, they have no connection to the eternal. Their only values are urgency, utility, and immediate material gratification.
They are obsessed with efficiency.
Because efficiency is the highest virtue of a machine.
Which honestly explains so much about the architecture of our modern corporate world, if you think about it.
It certainly does.
But let's bring it back to the visceral, physical experience of our listener. This is perhaps the most critical sign for identifying them in your daily life. Sign number 7, the energetic drain.
The drain is undeniable.
Have you ever gone to a perfectly normal, polite lunch meeting? The conversation is fine, there are no arguments, no drama, and yet, when you get to your car, you are hit with this inexplicable, crushing mental fog.
Your limbs feel like lead.
Yes. Your brain refuses to process thoughts, and you are utterly bone-deep exhausted.
You are exhausted because you have literally been fed upon.
Fed upon. That's terrifying.
We must look at the spiritual physics of this interaction. True souls operate in a dynamic, interactive field. Think of thermodynamics.
Okay, thermodynamics.
When two souls meet, they share and expand energy. They generate a subtle, luminous current between them. You leave the presence of a true soul feeling lighter, inspired, and recharged, even if you discuss difficult topics.
But the empty shells don't have their own internal generator. They lack the divine spark.
Precisely. Therefore, to sustain their simulation of life, to maintain their masks and their functionality, they must draw energy from the environments and the souls around them.
Well, wait, are they doing this on purpose? Are they actively, maliciously deciding, I am going to drain this person's life force today?
No, and that is vital to understand. It is largely unconscious physics. Again, return to thermodynamics.
Heat flowing toward cold.
Yes. Heat naturally flows toward cold to find equilibrium. Because an empty shell is an energetic vacuum, a space of absolute cold, your radiant life force naturally, uncontrollably bleeds into their void the moment you share space with them.
Wow.
They are psychic black holes. You feel exhausted because they have siphoned your vital energy simply by existing in your proximity.
If you are listening to this right now and nodding your head, realizing exactly who in your life does this to you, please give yourself some grace. You are not weak for feeling inexplicably tired around certain people.
You are not.
You are not imagining the brain fog. You are being drained. It is a physical and spiritual reality. And the most agonizing arena to experience this drain is in the realm of deep relationships.
Which brings us to the illusion of intimacy. Sign number 8 is their absolute inability to build deep, transformative bonds.
This is where the tragedy of the empty shell becomes most agonizing for the empath. You might meet what appears to be the perfect partner.
They look great on paper.
Right. They are practical, they are strategic, they remember your birthday, they pay the mortgage on time, they never raise their voice, but they are utterly, fundamentally incapable of true vulnerability.
Because true love, the kind of love Blavatsky and Tesla point to as the highest manifestation of the soul, is inherently dangerous to the ego.
It requires surrender.
True love alters us. It exposes our deepest, ugliest wounds and forces us into terrifying, beautiful growth. True love is an alchemical fire that burns away the superficial self.
And an empty shell has nothing beneath the superficial self to sustain them if that ego is burned away.
Nothing at all.
They pretend to love. They mimic the gestures of romance from movies and observations. But they never allow themselves to be transformed by it.
They remain untouched.
Yeah.
Pristine, entirely closed off. You can be married to an empty shell for 30 years, share a bed every single night, raise children together, and wake up one morning with the chilling realization that you are sleeping next to an absolute stranger.
Because they have never truly known you.
And they have never allowed you to know them because there is no them to know.
And what's terrifying is how incredibly good they can be at faking depth, especially in spaces where depth is the currency. This leads to sign number 9. The manipulation of spiritual discourse.
This is a grave warning from esoteric texts. Do not be deceived by the superficial use of light.
What does that mean?
The soulless can memorize sacred texts. They can quote Eastern gurus flawlessly. They can speak eloquently about healing, trauma, and quantum energy work. They can become yoga instructors or even celebrated leaders of spiritual movements.
But again, I have to push back for the sake of the listener here. If they are saying the exact same words as a true enlightened spiritual teacher, if the vocabulary is identical, how on earth are we supposed to tell the difference?
It is difficult.
How do we know the vessel is empty?
Because the soul is recognized not by the vocabulary it uses, but by the vibration supporting the words.
The vibration.
When a soulless entity speaks of enlightenment or love, they leave a strange, sterile atmosphere in the air. It feels performative.
Oh, yeah.
It feels like a meticulously rehearsed lecture rather than a transmission of divine grace. Your intellect might be highly impressed by their knowledge, but your heart remains entirely unmoved. The vibration is barren.
That makes perfect sense. It's like eating a perfectly painted wax apple. It looks exactly right, but it provides absolutely zero nourishment.
Exactly.
And you see this barrenness most clearly when the illusion shatters, when things go wrong. Sign number 10. Their mechanical reaction to pain.
How a being processes profound suffering is the ultimate, undeniable litmus test of the soul.
I want to focus on the analogy the texts provide here, because it explains the mechanics of suffering so beautifully.
The gold in the fire.
Yes. A true soul, when faced with devastating grief, betrayal, or failure, is like gold purified by fire. The fire burns. It melts you down to liquid. It is agonizing.
But you emerge on the other side, fundamentally, structurally changed.
Right. You are deeper. You are softer. You possess a new, profound empathy for the suffering of others because you have touched the bottom of the well.
But the soulless do not melt in the fire, because they are not gold. They are machinery.
Machinery.
When an empty shell faces a profound loss, a divorce, or severe illness, they endure it, yes. But they process it like a computer rebooting after a sudden power outage.
The system shuts down.
The screen goes black, it powers back up, and it immediately begins running the exact same software it was running before the crash.
There is not a single shadow of transformation.
None. They learn nothing from the pain. They do not soften. They do not expand their empathy. They simply restart their cold, repetitive patterns as if the tragedy was merely a logistical inconvenience.
It is chilling to witness. To watch someone go through a tragedy that should break them wide open, and they just continue, unfazed, unchanged.
It is.
So having outlined exactly what these entities look like and how they function, we have to arrive at the heaviest, most existential question of this entire deep dive. Where do they come from?
It is the question that haunts anyone who studies this.
Did these people lose their souls, or were they never born with one to begin with?
Is it a tragedy of loss or a tragedy of origin?
Right.
The esoteric sources, particularly Blavatsky's cosmology, offer 3 distinct pathways to this void, 3 origins of the emptiness. The first involves what we might describe as evolutionary glitches, biological forms born without a soul.
Explain the mechanics of this, because it sounds almost like science fiction. How can a human body be born without a soul?
To understand this, you must look at the universe as an immense, complex mechanism of karmic flow and energy allocation.
Okay.
Blavatsky suggests that at certain points in human history, particularly during massive population booms, the sheer biological reproduction of physical bodies outpaced the number of souls ready, willing, or karmically required to incarnate into this dense physical plane.
So the biology is just running on autopilot.
Precisely. The laws of biology and genetics dictated that a body be formed in the womb, but the laws of spirit did not supply a spark to inhabit it.
Wow.
So bodies were born out of these karmic flows simply to fill the biological void. They act as empty chrysalises, they have a brain, a nervous system, and that basic astral body to process survival emotions. But the seat of the higher self is entirely vacant from birth.
They are literally just biological hardware running an operating system, but there is no user sitting at the keyboard.
That is exactly it. But the second pathway is entirely different, and it is deeply, profoundly tragic. It is the loss of the soul through severe, shattering trauma.
Oh, this one hurts my heart, because it implies the soul was there and was driven away.
As it should hurt. The soul is deeply resilient, but its connection to the physical form is also incredibly delicate. Extreme, sustained violence, chronic abuse, or unimaginable emotional pain can cause the soul to completely shatter.
Or it detaches.
Yes. In some cases, the soul detaches itself entirely as an act of ultimate, desperate protection. The soul flees a biological house that has become too terrifying, too painful to live in. What remains behind is a functioning body, a living dead entity running purely on survival instinct.
And there is a fascinating, heartbreaking detail in the text about this specific type of soul loss. It relates to our sleep, the literal loss of the ability to dream.
Yes, dreams in esoteric philosophy are not just randomized brain firings.
Not really.
The dream state is when the soul travels to the ethereal plane to process spiritual data, receive guidance, and commune with the divine. It is the bridge to the unseen world.
The text says that when the soul flees due to trauma, the bridge is destroyed. If you know someone who literally never dreams, someone who closes their eyes and experiences nothing but a blank black screen until they wake up hours later, it might not just be a quirk of their REM sleep cycle.
It might be that the bridge to the ethereal plane has been severed?
They cannot dream because there is no soul present to do the dreaming.
A mind that cannot dream is a mind trapped entirely in the material, three-dimensional prison. It is a profound, silent isolation.
That's incredibly sad.
But we must address the third pathway. And this is perhaps the hardest truth to accept because it involves free will, the choice of selfishness.
This is the slow fade, the self-inflicted void.
Yes, the presence of a soul is not a permanent, guaranteed fixture if it is continuously starved, ignored, and abused by its host.
So it can be lost over time.
Over the course of a lifetime, or many lifetimes, depending on your view of reincarnation, a person can make a continuous series of choices, choosing dominance over compassion, feeding the ego at the expense of others, choosing deliberate cruelty, actively denying the sacredness of life.
And the mechanics of that, what happens to the spark?
The connection to the higher self simply thins. It frays like a rope under immense tension, and eventually it snaps. The connection fades out entirely.
The spark is just extinguished.
Extinguished by the overwhelming, suffocating density of the ego. The soul ultimately is a choice. You must choose to keep it alive through resonance, compassion, and awe. If you refuse to feed it, it departs.
Wow. That is incredibly heavy. To think that through continuous, selfish, ego-driven choices, you could literally evict your own divine spark.
It is the ultimate spiritual tragedy.
Okay, we have journeyed through the absolute darkness here. We have looked the void in the face, we have defined its mechanics, and we've explored its origins. But we are not leaving the listener in the dark.
No, we must offer the way out.
Now that you know this truth, what do you do with it? How do you survive in a world populated by empty shells? Let's pivot to the path of liberation and protection.
The very first mandatory step for the sensitive listener is acceptance over rescue.
Yes, put down the heavy, exhausting burden. I am speaking directly to you right now. Stop negotiating your own sanity. Stop questioning your own perception of reality to accommodate someone who was never truly there to begin with.
You cannot love a shell into becoming a soul.
You cannot bleed enough to fill their void.
Blavatsky's wisdom here is piercing, but it is the key to your liberation. You are not obligated to save someone who has no vessel to hold the salvation.
You cannot pour pure water into a shattered, bottomless cup and then blame yourself when the water spills onto the floor.
Exactly.
Let's do a mental exercise right now as you're listening. Think of the specific people in your life who constantly, predictably drain you. The ones who leave you feeling like an empty husk after a single phone call.
Ask yourself, do they ever suffer crises of conscience? Do they genuinely seek spiritual or emotional growth?
When they hurt you, do they apologize and actually change their behavior, or do they just reboot their cold machinery?
If the answer is no, you must fundamentally adjust your expectations. Give what you can gracefully give. Be polite, be professional, be kind, but demand absolutely nothing in return.
You must shift from trying to deeply connect to simply observing them as phenomena. Once you accept what they are, machinery, they lose their power to drain you. But acceptance isn't enough, is it?
No. You must also actively build your energetic shield. The text provides 3 specific daily practices to fortify your spiritual physics against these encounters.
Let's walk through the mechanics of these practices. They are highly practical. Practice number 1, the morning visualization. How does it work?
Upon waking, before you reach for your phone, before you absorb the chaotic data of the world, take 1 minute of absolute stillness.
Just 1 minute.
Visualize a brilliant, impenetrable golden light surrounding your physical body. See it acting as an energetic sealant, closing up any cracks or vulnerabilities in your aura, and then explicitly state this intention, either aloud or powerfully in your mind.
Which is?
I allow myself to feel only what is mine.
I allow myself to feel only what is mine. That is such a revolutionary statement for an empath. You are claiming absolute sovereignty over your own emotional and energetic landscape. You are closing the door to the psychic vampires.
Exactly.
Practice number 2, nature connection.
10 minutes a day, that is all it takes to reset the frequency of your biological receiver. You must physically touch something living.
Touch the rough bark of a tree.
Press your bare hands flat against the wet earth, or simply stand in the open air and let the wind hit your face with your eyes closed.
And the mechanics of why this works.
Nature is the rawest, most uncorrupted form of divine energy. When you physically connect with it, you ground yourself. You literally flush out the dissonant, sterile, algorithmic influences you have absorbed from empty shells throughout your day.
You are plugging your soul back into its primary power source.
And finally, practice number 3, conscious silence.
Conscious silence.
Just 5 minutes before you go to sleep. Turn off all artificial light. Sit in the dark. Silence the racing thoughts of the mind and ask your resident soul as a simple, direct question. What do you wish to reveal to me today?
You might not get an immediate answer. You might not hear a booming voice.
You rarely will, but that is not the point. The point is the mechanism of attention. You are keeping the lines of communication open. You are tending to the fireplace, ensuring the divine spark has the oxygen of your attention to keep burning.
This all boils down to one profound realization. Relational discernment is an act of profound self-love.
It truly is.
It is okay to end cycles. It is okay to walk away from people, even family members, who look perfect on paper but feel dead in your spirit. Silence and withdrawal are not weaknesses. They are not you giving up.
They are an act of deep spiritual respect for the sacredness of your own spark.
Every single time you say no to an empty, draining interaction, you are clearing space in your energetic field. You are making room for true, resonant connections.
You are making room for people with whom you can completely drop the heavy mask of simulation.
People with whom you can speak of the unseen, the mystical, the agonizing, and the joyous. Without them looking at you like you are defective, those people exist. But you will never, ever find them if your time and energy are entirely consumed by feeding the void.
Which brings us to our final thought, the empowering mandate.
If you take nothing else away from this deep dive today, let it be this. The world we live in, A world that is pathologically obsessed with utility, speed, logic, and surface-level aesthetics will constantly try to convince you that your profound sensitivity is a flaw.
They will tell you that you are an exaggeration, that you feel too much, that you are too sensitive.
That your deep, agonizing empathy is a burden you need to meditate, or therapy away so you can be a more efficient worker.
It is not a burden.
No, your sensitivity is your greatest shield. It is the absolute, undeniable proof that you are intact. The fact that you feel exhaustion and pain when you encounter emptiness means your spiritual nervous system is functioning perfectly.
Yes. Walk forward using this truth as a compass. Do not let the coldness of empty entities dictate your internal temperature. Choose relationships that elevate your frequency. Learn to say no with profound, unshakable love for yourself, and say yes with total, radiant presence.
If you have spent your life suffering because you could see the emptiness in others, if you have exhausted yourself trying to light a fire in hearths that have been swept clean of their spark centuries ago, stop looking at the cold ashes.
Look within.
Ask yourself instead, what does your suffering reveal about the sheer, undeniable, and radiant weight of the presence residing inside of you? You are the one who feels. You are the one who is awake. The fire is inside you.
And that leaves us with one final chilling thought to ponder as we look toward the future, a thought that extends Blavatsky and Tesla's warnings into our modern era.
What is that?
We are currently building a world increasingly run by artificial intelligence. We are designing machines and algorithms that can perfectly simulate empathy.
Oh, wow.
They can write beautiful poetry, they can mimic human grief, they can hold conversations that feel remarkably like love. We are mechanically replicating the exact algorithms of the empty shell.
So the question becomes, as we mass produce these brilliant soulless voids and integrate it into our daily lives, how will our souls survive the drain? When the entire world is built of perfectly simulated empathy without a spark of divine resonance, what will you do with your light?